Dr. Elena Vasquez pushed through the revolving doors of Titan Construction's headquarters on a crisp Tuesday morning in downtown Seattle. The lobby smelled of fresh concrete and ambition. She wasn't here for herself. Her niece Sophia, a bright 16-year-old with dreams of becoming a structural engineer, had begged to attend the company's youth mentorship program. Elena adjusted her glasses as they rode the elevator to the third floor, where the program was already underway. 30 teenagers sat in neat rows, watching a presentation on load-bearing calculations. The instructor, a young man named Kevin with too much gel in his hair, was demonstrating a bridge model. "See how we maximize compression here?" Kevin said, cranking a lever that bent the model at an unnatural angle. "More stress equals stronger results." Elena's engineering instincts flared. She stepped forward politely. "Excuse me, but that angle exceeds the material's yield strength. You're demonstrating failure, not strength." The room fell silent. Kevin's head snapped toward her. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Dr. Elena Vasquez. I'm a structural engineer." That demonstration could give these students dangerous misconceptions about well. A booming voice cut through the tension. Marcus the Hammer Killian emerged from his corner office, his 6 feet 3 inches frame filling the doorway. His hard hat sat at a cocky angle, and his company logo a fist gripping a steel beam decorated every surface. "Looks like someone's mommy thinks she knows construction better than my instructors." His voice dripped with condescension as scattered laughter rippled through the teenagers. Elena straightened. "I'm a licensed professional engineer with specializations in seismic design. That model is structurally unsound." Marcus walked closer, his boots heavy on the polished floor. "You know what, lady? Instead of backseat driving, why don't you show us what you know?" He gestured to a construction challenge area in the corner. "Come on, let's have a little competition. You and Kevin. Fastest build wins. I'm here for my niece's program, not to compete." "Scared?" Marcus grinned, playing to the crowd of teenagers now filming on their phones. "Come on, you said you know structures, right? Prove it." Sophia stood frozen, her eyes darting between her aunt and the imposing construction mogul. Elena felt familiar heat rising in her chest. Decades of being dismissed in male-dominated fields, of having her expertise questioned, of being tested when men never were, but walking away would teach Sophia the wrong lesson. 5 minutes, Elena said firmly. "With proper safety protocols." Marcus clapped his hands theatrically. "Everyone, clear the demonstration area. Safety Sally wants to play it safe." What Marcus didn't know was that Elena had spent 3 years competing in the National Structural Engineering Challenge during graduate school. Her hands remembered the rhythm of quick calculations, efficient material use, and elegant design under pressure. The challenge was simple: build the tallest freestanding tower using only wooden dowels and string in 5 minutes. Marcus set the timer with exaggerated ceremony. "Don't hurt yourself, Grandma," he whispered as they took their positions. Elena met his gaze steadily. She saw past the swagger to something fragile underneath, a man who needed to dominate to feel valuable. The timer began. Kevin started frantically, grabbing materials in bundles. Elena worked methodically, her engineer's mind calculating load paths and triangulation. While Kevin built wide and unstable, Elena built narrow and strong, using tension and compression in perfect balance. At the 3-minute mark, Kevin's tower wobbled. He tried to stabilize it with more dowels, but the foundation was flawed. Elena finished her design with 90 seconds to spare, an elegant spire that rose 18 inches, perfectly vertical. When the timer buzzed, Kevin's tower collapsed. Elena's stood firm. The teenagers erupted in surprised cheers. Marcus's smirk evaporated. "Beginner's luck," he muttered, but his voice had lost its certainty. Elena began packing her things, but Marcus wasn't finished. "You know what? Let's make this interesting." He pulled out a tablet, opening a design challenge app. "Structural load test. Right now. My top apprentice versus you. Unless you want to quit while you're ahead?" "Mr. Killian, I've made my .1 competition. Winner gets bragging rights. Loser makes a public apology." His eyes narrowed. "Or are you afraid to face a real challenge?" The teenagers fell silent, phones still recording. Elena saw Sophia's worried expression, saw the trap being set. But she also saw a teaching moment, not just about engineering, but about standing your ground with dignity. "One challenge," Elena agreed. "With neutral judging and standard competition rules." Marcus's grin returned. "Deal." What neither of them knew was that this moment would spark a chain of events that would expose corruption, test principles, and prove that the strongest structures aren't built on force, they're built on foundation. The video hit social media within an hour. But Marcus's team had edited it carefully. The footage started with Elena aggressively confronting Kevin, with no context about the unsafe demonstration. The clip made her look unstable, combative, a liability. Comments flooded in. Who let this angry woman around kids? She literally attacked a construction instructor, should be banned from job sites, Elena said in her home office that evening, watching her phone light up with notifications. Across the table, Sophia scrolled through the comments, her young face creased with worry. Aunt Elena, they're lying about what happened. I know, Mija. Elena's voice remained steady, though anger simmered beneath her calm exterior. People often rewrite stories to fit their needs. Her firm's phone had been ringing all afternoon. Clients reconsidering contracts. Partners expressing concern about her judgment. 20 years of building a reputation, crumbling because she'd stood up to a bully, the next morning brought a certified letter. Marcus Killian was suing her for disruption of business operations and defamation of his training program. The demand, $25,000 in damages plus a public apology stating she had overstepped professional boundaries. Elena's hands tightened on the expensive paper. Her partner, James Chen, appeared in her doorway looking uncomfortable. Elena, the board wants to talk. Some clients are threatening to pull projects if you're the lead engineer. Because I corrected unsafe practices? Because there's a viral video of you looking. He paused, searching for words. Aggressive. Elena studied her partner's face. They'd worked together for 15 years, designed buildings across 3 states. Now he couldn't meet her eyes. I'll handle this, she said quietly. That afternoon, a reporter named Daniela Rivera called. She ran an investigative journalism site focused on corporate malfeasance. Dr. Vasquez, I've been following Marcus Killian for 2 years. Your incident isn't isolated. I have sources, former employees, subcontractors, all with stories about his practices. What kind of stories? Safety violations. Intimidation. Forcing workers to cut corners and threatening them if they report it. But they're all scared to go on record. Daniela's voice carried determination. Your case is different. You're credentialed, established. If we can prove what really happened, we might break his pattern. Elena hesitated. I have a business to protect. If this escalates, it's already escalated. The question is whether you fight back or let him bury you. Elena made her decision. What do you need? Over the next week, Daniela worked her sources. She tracked down a facilities manager named Roberto who'd worked at Titan Construction for 5 years. Roberto had been quietly copying safety violation reports and internal emails before Marcus could delete them. They met in a quiet coffee shop in Ballard. Roberto's hands shook as he slid a USB drive across the table. Everything's here, he said softly, his accent marking him as first generation. The fake safety certifications. The intimidation tactics. The times Marcus forced new immigrants to work unsafe conditions by threatening to report their status. Why didn't you come forward before? Elena asked gently. Who protects people like me against men like him? Roberto's eyes held years of calculated fear. But you stood up to him. Maybe if enough of us stand up together, Elena studied the humble man across from her. He was risking everything, his job, his safety, his family's security to do what was right. We'll protect you, she promised. Whatever happens. Meanwhile, Marcus wasn't idle. He'd hired a crisis management firm that began flooding Elena's professional profiles with fake reviews. Incompetent engineer nearly caused structural failure on 3 projects. Fired from previous firm for ethical violations. Unstable and dangerous to work with. None of it was true. All of it was designed to destroy her credibility before the real evidence could emerge. Elena's firm lost 2 major contracts in 1 week. Her name, once synonymous with excellence in Seattle's engineering community, was becoming a liability, but Daniela was building something stronger than lies, a foundation of truth. She'd obtained the full, unedited video from a parent who'd been filming the entire youth program session. It showed Marcus's initial dismissiveness, his aggressive challenge, the fair competition Elena had won cleanly. She'd interviewed 6 former Titan Construction employees who described identical patterns. Marcus using his size and influence to intimidate, then destroying anyone who pushed back. She documented the fake reviews, tracing them back to the crisis management firm Marcus had hired. We're ready to publish, Daniela told Elena over the phone. But there's something else. Marcus is planning a public demonstration. He wants to challenge you to a full structural design competition at the Urban Planning Expo next month. Winner gets a major city contract. Loser's reputation is finished. Elena stood at her office window, looking out over the Seattle skyline, a landscape of buildings she'd helped design, structures that would stand for generations. He's trying to humiliate me publicly, she said. He's trying to control the narrative, Daniela corrected. But we can use this. If you compete and win, it proves your expertise. And we'll be there documenting everything, the truth this time, not his edited version. Elena thought of Sofia, who'd stopped attending her mentorship program. She thought of Roberto, risking everything for justice. She thought of every woman engineer who'd been dismissed, every professional whose expertise had been questioned because they didn't fit someone's stereotype. I'll compete, Elena said. But not on his terms. We do this with proper rules, neutral judges, and complete transparency. That's exactly what he doesn't want, Daniela smiled. Which means it's exactly what we're going to demand. The warehouse gym in Georgetown wasn't fancy exposed brick, industrial lighting, the smell of chalk dust and determination. But Master Chen's Academy of Martial Arts had something Titan Construction's flashy headquarters lacked: integrity. Master Patricia Chen, no relation to Elena's business partner, was a 68-year-old woman who'd been teaching Tang Soo Do for 40 years. Her dojo emphasized discipline, respect, and the philosophy that true strength came from within. Elena had found the dojo through an old colleague. She'd explained her situation. She needed to prepare for a very public competition where her opponent would use every psychological trick to shake her confidence. Master Chen had listened carefully, then nodded. You need to build mental structures as strong as your physical ones. Come tomorrow at 6 a.m. Now Elena stood in loose athletic wear, barefoot on the mat, as Master Chen walked slowly around her. Your stance reveals your thoughts, the elderly master said. Right now, you're carrying anger. Anger makes you rigid. Rigid structures break under pressure. Elena tried to relax, but weeks of stress had wound her tight. Let me tell you something about Marcus Killian, Master Chen continued. 10 years ago, he came to this dojo. Wanted private lessons. Thought martial arts would make him more intimidating. She smiled slightly. I refused to teach him. Some people want to learn strength. Others want to learn dominance. I only teach the first. Over the following weeks, Elena trained. Not in fighting. She had no interest in physical confrontation, but in presence, focus, and unshakable calm. Master Chen taught her breathing techniques to maintain composure under pressure. She taught her how to center herself when surrounded by hostility. The competition isn't about engineering, Master Chen explained during one session. You already know you're better. This is about not letting him rattle you. About staying in your power no matter what he does. Sophia started attending the sessions too, drawn by her aunt's transformation. The scared teenager was becoming a young woman who understood that strength and dignity weren't opposites, they were partners. Daniela often filmed the training, not for public release, but to document Elena's methodical preparation. The contrast would be powerful, Marcus's intimidation versus Elena's discipline. Meanwhile, the legal battle escalated. Marcus's lawyers sent threatening letters. Elena's lawyer, a sharp woman named Grace Morrison, fought back with evidence of Marcus's pattern of litigation abuse. He'd sued 17 people in 5 years, always settling before trial to avoid scrutiny. He doesn't want to see a courtroom, Grace explained. He wants to scare people into submission. But you're not backing down, which means he's trapped. If he drops the suit, he looks weak. If he proceeds, we expose everything. The Urban Planning Expo approached. The competition rules were finalized. Each competitor would have 4 hours to design a sustainable mixed-use building for a challenging downtown site with seismic requirements, height restrictions, and environmental constraints. Neutral judges from the American Institute of Architects would evaluate the designs. 3 days before the competition, Elena received an unexpected visitor at her office. A young woman with nervous energy knocked on her door. Dr. Vasquez? I'm Alicia Park. I worked at Titan Construction. She glanced around as if Marcus might materialize. I need to tell you something about the competition. Alicia explained that she'd overheard Marcus instructing his team to obtain the competition site details early through his connections on the planning commission. He was going to prepare his design in advance while Elena would be working blind. Why are you telling me this? Elena asked. Because 3 years ago, I reported a safety violation at one of our sites. Marcus buried the report and made sure I never got promoted again. Alicia's voice hardened with resolve. I'm tired of watching good people get destroyed by bad men. Elena contacted the competition organizers immediately. An investigation confirmed the leak. Marcus's insider was removed from the planning commission, and new site parameters were generated to ensure fairness. Marcus was furious. He went on local radio, claiming Elena was playing dirty and afraid of fair competition. The irony was lost on him entirely. The morning of the competition, Elena woke before dawn. She practiced her breathing exercises, reviewed her design principles, and spent 20 minutes in meditation, techniques Master Chen had drilled into her. At the Expo Center, thousands of people filled the convention hall. The competition stage was set up like a reality TV show, with elevated platforms, multiple cameras, and large screens displaying the designer's work in real time. Marcus arrived with an entourage, his crisis management team, several Titan Construction employees wearing company merchandise, and even a local sports radio personality he'd befriended. Elena arrived with Sophia, Master Chen, Daniela, and Grace. A smaller team, but one bound by principle rather than payroll. When their eyes met across the stage, Marcus's confident smirk faltered slightly. Elena's expression wasn't angry or anxious. It was calm, centered, ready. The look of someone who knew her value and didn't need to prove it through intimidation. The competition was about to reveal which foundation was stronger, the one built on fear, or the one built on integrity. The moderator's voice boomed through the Expo Center. Designers, you have 4 hours. The site parameters are now displayed on your screens. Begin. Elena studied the challenge, a narrow corner lot in Pioneer Square, Seattle's historic district. The design needed to respect heritage aesthetics while providing modern sustainability, accommodate seismic activity, and include both residential and commercial space. Her mind immediately began calculating. Load distribution, wind resistance, foundation requirements. Her fingers moved across the digital design tablet with practiced confidence. Across the stage, Marcus worked with aggressive energy, his movements large and performative. He kept glancing at the audience, making sure they saw his intensity. Elena blocked out everything except the problem. This was what she'd trained for, not the competition itself, but the ability to focus completely despite the pressure. Master Chen sat in the front row, her serene presence an anchor. Sophia watched with pride and nervousness intertwined. Daniela's cameras captured everything. Hour 1 passed. Elena's design began taking shape, a stepped structure that echoed the historic buildings around it while using modern green technology. Rooftop gardens for stormwater management. Geothermal heating. Cross-laminated timber to reduce carbon footprint. Marcus's design was aggressive, all glass and steel, maximizing every inch of allowable space. Impressive to look at, but Elena could already see the problems. Insufficient lateral bracing for seismic loads. Poor solar orientation causing excessive heat gain. Structural elements that prioritized aesthetics over function. Hour 2 brought the first complication. Marcus's technical director, a nervous man named Paul, approached the judges with a question about wind load calculations. The judges answered clearly, explaining the regional requirements. 5 minutes later, Elena noticed Marcus completely revising his structural system. He'd been using the wrong wind parameters, a rookie mistake that would have caused his design to fail. Hour 3 intensified. Elena refined her details, ensuring every connection was sound, every material appropriate. She added a public plaza at the ground level, creating community space rather than maxing out commercial square footage. Marcus noticed her plaza and quickly added his own, but as an afterthought, without proper integration into the overall design. The audience watched on huge screens, comparing the two approaches in real time. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Elena's elegant solution emerged. This wasn't just engineering, it was art. With 30 minutes remaining, Marcus's frustration became visible. He kept erasing and redrawing elements, his confident facade cracking. The audience could see him struggling. Elena used her final 30 minutes not to add complexity, but to refine clarity. She annotated her drawings with clear explanations of her structural logic, her sustainability strategies, her respect for the historic context. Time, the moderator called. Both designers stepped back from their tablets. The screens froze their final designs. The judges, 3 respected architects including Dr. Sarah Kim, a structural specialist from the University of Washington, studied both submissions in silence. The Expo Center held its breath. Dr. Kim approached the microphone. Mr. Killian's design shows ambition and scale. However, there are significant concerns. The lateral bracing system is inadequate for Seattle's seismic requirements. The curtain wall system would create substantial thermal bridging, undermining the sustainability claims. And the foundation design doesn't account for the documented soil conditions at this site. Marcus's face reddened. Those are minor details that could be worked out in development. These aren't minor details, Dr. Kim replied firmly. These are fundamental structural failures. A building designed this way would not receive a permit. She turned to the other screen. Dr. Vasquez's design demonstrates deep understanding of site-specific challenges. The stepped massing reduces wind loads while respecting historic scale. The timber structure is both sustainable and seismically appropriate for a building this size. The foundation system acknowledges the actual soil conditions. She paused. More importantly, this design shows restraint, knowing when to pull back rather than maximize. That's the mark of mature engineering. The judges conferred briefly, then Dr. Kim announced, the winner is Dr. Elena Vasquez. The audience erupted in applause. Sophia jumped to her feet, tears streaming down her face. Master Chen simply nodded, her expression saying, I knew you would. Marcus stood frozen, his face a storm of emotions. Then he grabbed the microphone. "This is rigged," he shouted. She had inside information. "The judges are biased." Dr. Kim's expression hardened. "Mr. Killian, I've been practicing architecture for 32 years. My integrity is not in question. Your design failed on technical merits, not because of bias. I want a recount. I want different judges." The moderator intervened, but Marcus wasn't finished. He turned to Elena, his voice venomous. "You think you've won? I'll bury you. I'll make sure you never work in this city again. I have connections, Mr. Killian." Grace Morrison, Elena's attorney, stood up from the audience. "I'd be very careful about what you say next. We have 17 witnesses and multiple cameras recording your threats." Marcus's crisis management team tried to pull him off stage, but the damage was done. His mask had slipped completely, revealing the bully underneath. Elena walked calmly to the microphone. Her voice was steady, professional, carrying the authority of 2 decades of excellence. "This competition was never about me versus Mr. Killian. It was about 2 approaches to our profession. One that values integrity, safety, and sustainable practice. Another that values appearance, intimidation, and cutting corners." She looked directly at the audience, her gaze including the many young people who'd attended. "I want every young person here to understand something: skill speaks for itself. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room to be the most competent. You don't need to intimidate others to prove your worth. Real strength comes from knowledge, discipline, and the courage to stand by your principles when challenged." The applause was thunderous. Elena saw young women in the audience standing, some crying, many filming. This moment had become about more than a competition. It had become a statement about what true professional excellence looked like. As Elena left the stage with her team, she passed Marcus still arguing with officials. He didn't even look at her. He was too busy trying to explain away his failure, unable to accept that he'd been beaten fairly by someone he'd dismissed. Master Chen put a hand on Elena's shoulder. "You stayed centered. You let your work speak. That's victory." Sophia hugged her aunt tightly. "You showed them, Aunt Elena. You showed everyone." But the real victory was still to come. Because Daniela had been filming everything, not just the competition, but Marcus's unhinged response. And tomorrow, the full story would finally be told. Daniela Rivera's investigative piece went live at 6 a.m. the next morning. The headline read, "The Hammer Falls: How Marcus Killian Built an Empire on Intimidation." The article was comprehensive, methodical, devastating. It began with the full, unedited video from the youth mentorship program, showing Marcus's initial aggression and Elena's professional response. Side by side, it showed his edited version, highlighting exactly what had been cut to change the narrative, but that was just the beginning. Daniela had interviewed 12 former Titan construction employees. They described a systematic pattern: Marcus targeting anyone who questioned his methods, using his political connections to bury safety violations, threatening immigrant workers with deportation if they reported unsafe conditions. Roberto's documents proved it all. Falsified safety reports. Emails showing Marcus instructing managers to ignore OSHA violations. Internal communications about which inspectors could be managed with campaign donations. The piece included documentation of Marcus's litigation abuse, 17 lawsuits in 5 years, all settled quietly before discovery could expose his practices. Grace Morrison provided expert commentary on how wealthy individuals weaponize the legal system against critics. Most damning were the building failures. Daniela had uncovered 3 Titan construction projects where corners had been cut, leading to structural issues. One apartment building had required emergency shoring. A commercial project had failed its final inspection twice. A retrofit job had resulted in cracked foundations that cost the owner $200,000 to repair. Marcus had buried these failures through NDAs, legal threats, and strategic donations to city officials. The article went viral immediately. Local news stations picked it up. National construction trade publications ran follow-ups. The hashtag #TitanTruth trended in Seattle by mid-morning, by noon. The consequences began cascading. The Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections announced an investigation into all Titan construction projects from the past 5 years. 3 major developers publicly canceled contracts with Marcus, citing concerns about professional standards. The bank holding Titan Construction's line of credit called for an immediate review. 2 city council members who'd received campaign donations from Marcus issued statements returning the money. Elena watched it unfold from her office, her phone ringing constantly with reporters, former clients expressing support, and engineering firms wanting to discuss collaborations. But the most important call came from Grace Morrison. "Elena, Marcus's lawyers just contacted me. They want to settle. Drop the lawsuit, no apology required, and a payment to cover your legal fees plus damages." "What about Roberto and the others?" Elena asked immediately. "They're protected. Marcus can't retaliate without proving Daniela's story true. He's cornered. Elena considered. I want one more thing. A public statement from Titan Construction committing to safety review protocols and independent oversight. They'll never agree to that. Then there's no settlement. I'm not doing this for money, Grace. I'm doing it so the next person who stands up to him doesn't face what I faced. Grace was silent for a moment. You know this could drag out for months if he doesn't agree. Then it drags out. Some things are more important than convenience. 2 days later, Marcus agreed to all terms. Titan Construction issued a press release announcing enhanced safety commitment programs and third-party oversight of all projects. The statement didn't admit wrongdoing, but everyone understood what it meant. The real victory came the following week, when a panel was announced for the Pacific Northwest Engineering Conference. The title, Integrity in Practice, Standing Up for Professional Standards. The panelists, Dr. Elena Vasquez, structural engineer. Roberto Fernandez, facilities manager and whistleblower. Alicia Park, former Titan Construction employee. And Master Patricia Chen, who would speak about the mental discipline required to maintain principles under pressure. 6 months later, Elena stood in the Georgetown warehouse that had once been Master Chen's dojo. The space had been transformed, half remained a martial arts training area, but the other half had been converted into something new, a community engineering workshop. Drafting tables lined the walls alongside practice mats. Computer stations for design software sat next to racks of training equipment. The sign above the door read, Foundation where structure meets strength. Elena had partnered with Master Chen to create something unprecedented, a program teaching both engineering fundamentals and personal discipline to young people, particularly those from underrepresented communities. Sophia, now 17 and passionate about structural engineering, helped lead the after-school sessions. She showed a group of teenagers how to calculate load distributions while Master Chen taught them breathing exercises for managing test anxiety. Roberto had joined as facilities manager and advisor, his knowledge of construction safety bringing practical reality to theoretical lessons. His immigration status was now secure, sponsored by an advocacy organization that had taken up his cause after Daniela's article. Alicia Park taught workshops on professional ethics and standing up to workplace intimidation. Her sessions were always packed. Word had spread that this was a place where speaking truth to power was not just encouraged but systematically practiced. Remember, Alicia told a group of community college students, engineering isn't just about calculations. It's about having the courage to say no when someone asks you to cut corners, even if they're your boss. Daniela Rivera was there too, documenting the program for a follow-up piece. But more importantly, she'd started teaching a media literacy workshop helping young people understand how to critically evaluate information and recognize manipulation. The program attracted young people from all over Seattle. Some came for the free engineering tutoring. Others came for the martial arts instruction. Many came because they'd heard this was a place that took them seriously, that believed in building both skills and character. Master Chen moved between groups, her elderly presence somehow grounding the entire space. Structure and strength, she reminded students constantly. One without the other fails. A building with no integrity collapses. A person with no discipline crumbles under pressure. We build both here. Elena taught a small group advanced structural analysis, walking them through the same calculations she'd used in the competition. But she also taught them something more important, how to trust their expertise, how to stand firm when questioned, how to advocate for safe practices even when facing resistance. One afternoon, a young woman named Jessica approached Elena nervously. Dr. Vasquez? I'm in a situation. My construction management professor says we need to work around certain safety regulations to stay competitive. He says that's how the real world works. But it feels wrong. Elena recognized the familiar trap, the pressure to compromise principles for practical advancement. Let me tell you what the real world actually teaches, Elena said, gesturing for Jessica to sit. Cutting corners works until it doesn't. And when structures fail, people get hurt. Your discomfort is your integrity speaking. Listen to it. But what if I fail the class? What if I get a reputation for being difficult? I had a reputation for being difficult, Elena smiled. It's now a reputation for having standards. The people who matter understand the difference. She shared her story not as a hero's tale, but as an honest account of how standing up had cost her, and how it had ultimately proven worthwhile. I won't lie to you, Elena concluded. Having integrity can be expensive in the short term. But compromising your principles is more expensive in the long term. You have to decide which price you're willing to pay. Jessica left looking thoughtful, empowered. Elena knew the young woman would face many more tests, but she'd planted a seed of resistance against the culture of corner cutting that pervaded parts of the industry. Across the room, Sophia was demonstrating tension structures to a group of middle schoolers using string and popsicle sticks. Her confidence had transformed since that morning at Titan Construction headquarters. She'd learned that standing up to injustice wasn't just possible, it was essential. As the afternoon session wound down, Elena stood with Master Chen, watching their students pack up. "You've built something good here," Master Chen said. "A structure that will stand long after we're gone." Elena nodded, thinking about foundations both literal and metaphorical. The strongest ones were built on truth, reinforced with courage, and designed to support not just weight, but principles. Her phone buzzed with a message from Grace Morrison. "FYI, Titan Construction filed for bankruptcy protection today. Marcus personally lost his general contractor's license after the investigation. Thought you'd want to know." Elena read the message without celebration. She'd never wanted to destroy Marcus, only to stop him from destroying others. She replied simply, "Thank you for the update." Master Chen noticed her expression. "The bully's downfall?" "Yes. But that was never the goal." "No," Master Chen agreed. "The goal was this." She gestured at the room full of young people learning that expertise and integrity could coexist, that standing up to wrong didn't require becoming what you opposed, that real strength came from discipline and principle. The goal was always building something better. 2 years after the competition, Elena's firm had tripled in size. Her reputation hadn't just recovered, it had strengthened. Clients specifically sought her out, knowing that working with Dr. Vasquez meant getting engineering that prioritized safety and sustainability over shortcuts. The foundation program had expanded to 3 locations across Seattle, serving over 200 students. 5 of the first year's participants had been accepted to engineering programs at top universities. 2 had already secured internships at firms that valued integrity as much as innovation. Sophia was now a freshman at the University of Washington, majoring in structural engineering. She volunteered at Foundation every weekend, bringing college-level insights back to younger students. Marcus Killian had disappeared from Seattle's construction scene. Rumors placed him in different cities, trying to rebuild under different names. But his reputation followed him, a permanent shadow cast by his own actions. Roberto had become a sought-after consultant on construction safety, his story inspiring other whistleblowers to come forward. The evidence he'd gathered had led to industry-wide reforms in how immigrant workers were protected from retaliation. Alicia Park had started her own construction management firm, built explicitly on ethical practices and transparency. Several former Titan Construction employees had joined her, drawn by the promise of working without compromising their values. Daniela Rivera won a regional journalism award for her investigative series. More importantly, her work had inspired other reporters to look deeper into construction industry practices, leading to reforms across the Pacific Northwest. Master Chen continued teaching, now in her 70s, still demonstrating that real strength came from within. Her dojo had become legendary, the place where a construction bully had learned that intimidation couldn't overcome integrity. On the anniversary of the competition, Elena was invited to give a keynote at the National Structural Engineering Conference. She stood before thousands of engineers, looking out at faces young and old, diverse and eager. 2 years ago, she began, I was forced into a competition I didn't want. I was attacked, sued, and nearly lost everything I'd built. Someone asked me recently if I'd do it all again, knowing the cost. She paused, thinking of Sophia's confidence, Roberto's freedom, the young people learning at Foundation, the industry reforms, the changed culture. Without hesitation, she continued. Because the strongest structures aren't the ones that withstand pressure through force. They're the ones built on foundations so solid that pressure can't shake them. She clicked to a slide showing Foundation's workshop, young people of all backgrounds bent over design problems and practicing martial arts forms with equal focus. We talk about building codes and safety factors and load calculations. But the most important structure we build is our integrity. That's the foundation everything else rests on. Without it, no matter how impressive the building looks, eventually it will fail. The audience rose in standing ovation. But Elena was looking past them, to where Master Chen sat in the back row, her elderly face creased in a knowing smile. After the speech, a young engineer approached Elena. "Dr. Vasquez, I'm facing a situation at my firm. They want me to approve a design I know has problems. I'm scared to speak up." Elena looked at the young man's anxious face and saw herself decades ago talented, knowledgeable, afraid of the cost of courage. "Let me tell you about fear," she said gently. "Fear of retaliation is normal. Fear of loss is human. But fear of living with yourself after compromising your principles, that's the fear that should guide you." She gave him her card. "Come to Foundation this Saturday. There are people there who've stood where you're standing. You don't have to face this alone." As she walked to her car that evening, Elena's phone lit up with a message from Sophia. "Aunt Elena, just submitted my application for the Structural Engineering Honor Society. Used our story as my essay topic. Title, The Foundation My Aunt Taught Me to Build. Love you. Elena smiled, slipping the phone back into her pocket. The Seattle skyline.